Hi, my name's Silvie, my pronouns are they, she.
My name is JT Lightner, and my pronouns are he, him.
And I'm Sasha, and I use any pronouns. We are here in Hope Cemetery to talk about Galesburg's long history of abolition surrounded by all the people who made it possible. We'll be taking you on an audio tour through the cemetery to learn more about who these people are and how they're instrumental in the founding of Galesburg.
Some people might think it's a little weird to talk about the cemetery when we're focused on the town's history of abolition. This is a fair concern, but according to Hope Cemetery historian Rex Charrington, the history of the cemetery and the town of Galesburg are intertwined in many ways.
So before we get into it, we wanted to talk a little bit about the background of this cemetery. According to a Knox magazine article from 2012 by Tom Wilson, it was established the year before the town was founded due to a malaria outbreak.
Yeah, it was originally named the Burying Ground, which isn't the most unique of names. It was built around the same time temporary housing was also built for the town, both out of necessity. It was established by the trustees of Galesburg's First Church of Christ. We assume this is the first church established in the town.
Now that we're done with that quick background of the cemetery, we can't think of a better person to start off talking about other than George Washington Gale, the founder of Knox College and Galesburg.
A fun fact about George Washington Gale that I feel isn't talked about enough is that he was a reverend. I think it's very interesting to add that fact since he was Christian as well as an abolitionist, which wasn't a popular combination at that time.
That is really interesting. Did you also know that he led the settlement along with a group of people from New York to found a college built on anti-slavery and pro-suffrage sentiments?
Yeah, that's true. A lot of the people we'll be talking about later were instrumental in the founding of the town and were also abolitionists. According to Herman Mulder, they even faced legal repercussions because of their abolitionist acts and their help with the Underground Railroad.
Speaking of the Underground Railroad, it would be a crime not to talk about Susan Van Allen Richardson. She escaped slavery at 31 years old with her 3 sons and another formerly enslaved woman and headed northeast through the Underground Railroad to Knoxville where they planned on settling. Once they got there, though, it didn't go according to plan.
No, they were all arrested 6 weeks later. And once they were released, the police tried to put them up for auction. According to Carol Pirtle, while a lot of people came to see the auction, no one bid for Susan and her 3 sons.
Damn, that's crazy. I thought slavery wasn't allowed in Illinois since it was a northern state.
Well, slavery wasn't quote-unquote allowed, but there were always loopholes and indentured servitude was allowed. That's actually what Susan was doing before she escaped for Knoxville.
Wow. Well, getting back on track, her and her sons were released from police custody and they rented a home in Knoxville. Susan worked as a house cleaner while her oldest son worked at a nearby farm. It was like that for about a year or so, but, eventually their former enslavers found them in Knoxville and kidnapped her sons.
Truly awful. After some of her friends advised her to not go after her sons for fear she would get kidnapped as well, she escaped to Galesburg where she married and then later remarried. She also helped start up the Galesburg stop on the Underground Railroad and the African Methodist Episcopal Allen Church with her husband.
And she served as a conductor for the Underground Railroad until it was no longer used. She was such an important part of abolitionist history, but is often glossed over, and we wanted to spend a little more time on her, and what little information we had on her. Speaking of information, we'd like to thank our sources for all the information that we used.
Yes, right. Thank you to Tom Wilson in the Knox Magazine, the Register Mail, Carol Pirtle, Owen Mulder, and BeforeKnox.com for all the information we used during this podcast.
And thank you for listening to the history of abolition in Galesburg told through Gravestones. We hope you enjoyed it.